Well, my Logan was a red-haired, fair-skinned, 17-year-old, fun, big kid. He had a mild form of autism known as Asperger's. He was very silly, and he even embraced the term goofy as he loudly sang off-key to all of his favorite songs. He was referred to as Big Logan because he loved to lead the neighborhood kids in football or baseball in the backyard. Logan was less than 3 weeks from the beginning of his senior year. He was falling asleep frequently, and I noticed that he'd been obstructing his airway when he was sleeping. I took him to a local ENT for evaluation. He was sent to have a sleep study which determined that he had obstructive sleep apnea with elements of central sleep apnea. The treatment option that we chose for Logan was surgery. We had waited for about a month to receive insurance approval. Well, there's only one recovery room area, not a second stage recovery at this facility. He arrived in the recovery room at 11:25. According to the documents, he remained non-responsive to verbal stimuli until 12:30.
Do you know about what time you were in to see him?
Around 12:45.
Okay, so he had just become aware and he was beginning to talk. What was he like when you first saw him?
Well, when we were allowed to see him, the first words that Logan said were, "I made it," and he gave us each a high five. His father and I each sat beside him on the right side of the bed and the nurse on the left side of the bed with the monitors on the left side of the bed. And Logan had a few sips of Sprite and a grape popsicle. So during this time, Logan's oxygen saturation monitor continued to alarm. The nurse would say, "Take a deep breath" occasionally and change the monitor probe on his finger to another finger.
Now, you mentioned that the oxygen saturation alarm was going off. Did the nurse do anything additional besides that?
Well, when I looked at the pulse oximeter that was monitoring Logan, it did not display a waveform as it usually does. It just displayed a number. The nurse said that his color looks good and frequently moved the pulse oximeter probe. When we arrived home, he was very weak and sleepy when I helped him out of the car. He appeared to be weaker than when he walked out of the surgery center. I helped him to the love seat in the living room, and he went to watch a movie that he received as a gift. I started the movie, and he never woke up to see it play. He started to look very pale, and I just told him to take a deep breath. So each successive time that I woke him up, it was becoming more challenging to awaken him because he was so very somnolent. I was afraid to leave him, and I sat on the floor next to him, and I watched him very closely. Because the popsicle had made his lips purple, I looked at his nail beds, I looked at his ears and his nose for his color. The last time that I woke him up, his eyes opened, and he looked past me and asked me quietly, "Where's Mom?" I said, "Logan, I'm Mom. Take a deep breath." He said, "Oh, yeah." And he took a couple of deep breaths and he fell asleep. I called a friend and coworker who lived close to assist me with taking him to the hospital. As I was sitting next to Logan, I tried to wake him up and have him take another deep breath, but he did not respond. So I rubbed his sternum very hard and still no response. I put my hand near his mouth and his nose and I felt soft breathing. After about 3 breaths, I felt no breathing at all. I moved the coffee table, I grabbed an arm and a leg, and I rolled him onto the floor, and he landed face down. He landed really, really hard face down. I just couldn't believe that he didn't wake up. I rolled him onto his back, and I gave him 2 rescue breaths. I called 911 for an ambulance. I checked for a pulse, and he had a weak pulse. I could not believe that he was not breathing. I remember 911 transferring me to another dispatch. I told them that I was doing rescue breathing, that I needed to put the phone down. Meanwhile, I was screaming at him between these breaths. The taste of the grape popsicle that filled my mouth, I remember that so vividly. My friend knocked on the door. Seeing my face, she ran to us on the floor. She checked a pulse, and she didn't find one at that time. So she started compressions, and at one point she thought that air was going into his stomach. So I pushed on his stomach, rolled him on his side. I wiped the brown purple stuff coming out of his mouth and started rescue breathing again. Just like we would at work.